Do you struggle to get 3 consistently healthy meals in each day? Now, if you do, don't feel bad about it. It's completely normal, especially when we first start this journey. It's like, okay, well, I've now decided I'm going to start working on my body. And for many of us, we'll be trying to get in 3 healthy meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, the truth is, for many of you, you could actually do it in 2 meals a day, or you could do it in 6. Like anywhere in that range tends to work well. The catch is we just have to find the rhythm that's going to work best for us, not only to feel good, but also to help us reach the aesthetic goal that we've got. I want to burn fat, I want to lose muscle, I want to repair any pain, injury, etc. So depending on what the goal is, we of course need to feed and to fuel that. And we can do it on 2 meals a day, or we could do it on 6, as I say. But we have to find a rhythm that we can consistently stick to. Now, taking the average being roughly 3 that most people will go for, again, this in itself still tends to be quite challenging, even though most people are already eating 3 meals a day. Now, when it's the case, or when you're stuck in this place of, holy shit, this seems actually a lot harder than I was expecting. Sometimes I can get it right. Some meals are kind of bang on. And then the others, I find to get all of my proteins, my fats, and my carbs all evenly sort of spaced out in the meals or set up in the way that's going to lead you to your goal. The one change that I recommend you guys make is that initially you focus on perfecting one meal. So for example, you'd pick breakfast, your lunch, or your dinner, and you'd focus on perfecting that. So let's say, for example, we pick breakfast. So I would make sure that at breakfast, I have the correct number of portions of protein, the correct number of portions of veg, and the same with my carbs and my fats. So if I'm going starchy carbs, I want, for example, 1 cupped handful. My proteins, I might have 2 palm-sized portions. For my above-ground veg or my fibrous veg, I might have 2 to 3 fist-sized portions. And then for my fats, I would have 2 thumb-sized portions to then make up that meal. So that's like, cool. My 1 meal breakfast has been nailed, and I've gotten that right for what I'm trying to achieve. Now, with the other 2 meals, I would still try to make them better than they would normally have been before you started on your new healthy plan. But I wouldn't worry so much about getting them perfect. But what I would recommend you do, even though you're not trying to get them perfect, I would at least try to make sure that your protein intake is on point. Because when we're playing this game and we start becoming more active and we want the body to repair and rebuild, we want our metabolism to increase and so on. And because many of us are going to actually be reducing our overall calorie intake, we want to make sure that we have enough protein on board for the body to maintain as much muscle mass as possible whilst we're trying to lose weight. So we would want to make sure, even though those other 2 meals aren't necessarily going to be perfect, we want to make sure we've got enough protein in there. So breakfast, we'd say, oh, cool, I've nailed that one down. That's perfect. My lunch and my dinner, they're not so much of a concern to me about them being perfect just yet, but I will make sure I get at least my 2 palms of protein in at both of those meals. That way we know, as I just mentioned, we've got enough protein on board to keep us satiated, to boost our metabolism, and to maintain our muscle mass whilst we're in a period of time where we're bringing on board less calories than we might have normally been, plus we're going to be more active than we have been for probably a long period of time. So rather than be wondering or worrying, all right, well, should I make sure every meal is perfect? Of course, in an ideal world, we want every meal to be as good as possible. But at the same time, we don't want the changes that we're trying to make to become too stressful, too overwhelming, too inconvenient, because if they are, we end up just sort of hitting the fuck it button and throwing it all out the window because it all just seems like it's too much. So instead, we want to operate at a level that will allow us to reach our goals and that keeps us on track, but doesn't stress us out and make us think, well, this is just more inconvenience than it is actual benefit to me. So it's a pretty simple method. And some of you might be thinking, well, I was told that I have to eat perfectly at every meal and this and that. And, you know, it's ideal. But the truth is, for most of us, we're eating so far off plan prior to when we decide to make the changes that we want to make that even just a few minor tweaks will actually start moving us in the right direction and moving us towards the goals that we've set for ourselves. So just nailing down that 1 meal. Now, of course, today I gave the example of breakfast. You don't have to pick breakfast. You might pick lunch. That might be the easiest one for you to get right. Or in fact, your dinner. It doesn't matter which meal you pick to get right and to focus on first, but just make sure that regardless of which one you choose, The other 2 meals still have adequate protein where possible. And for the average person amongst you, at least for your initial aesthetic goals that you're after, you will probably want to make sure that the majority of your protein is relatively lean. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have things like lamb, or it doesn't mean you can't have salmon and mackerel and stuff. You can and you should have all of those. But as a general rule, you'll probably choose leaner meats and leaner cuts majority of the time whilst you're nailing down your initial aesthetic results. And then as you get closer to your goal and you start to perfect all 3 meals, then you can start to be a bit more playful about the types of proteins and whether they're high purine, low purine, and all those types of things, as in like the light meat or the dark meat and things like that. Because ultimately, you want to have the ones that are actually going to make you feel the best as well as produce the aesthetic result that you're after, not just the ones that maybe get you the fat loss result, but you end up feeling like shit or your energy isn't sustained and so on. So I'll leave the details of that for another video, but just bear in mind or know that over time, you may find, particularly if your genetic and ethnic background, your ancestry is northern or southern hemisphere, what you will likely find is that over time you will actually do much better on the heavier meats, the darker meats and so on, in terms of maintaining satiety, maintaining blood sugar regulation and energy levels and clarity of thought and all those types of things. But in the early stages, whilst you're trying to gain some momentum with your aesthetic results, it's not too big of a problem to lean on the leaner meats. Just bear in mind they may not sustain you for quite as long. So that's what I'll leave with you guys tonight. If you have any questions on this or you want me to dig deeper into any of the components that I've spoken about, just drop a comment below and I will do a follow-up video to help you guys out and to clarify anything you're confused about or maybe just want to learn more about. And if not, people, I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Take it easy and I shall chat to you soon.